You're listening to Living Free, your podcast for a life full of freedom and magic. I'm your host, Tanja Hirsch, and I hope that every time you listen, you feel a little bit more inspired to follow your intuition and to create a life beyond your wildest dreams. Welcome back, my loves, to the Living Free podcast. Today I have my dear sister Sarah Schill in the podcast, and I met Sarah last year on my first ayahuasca ceremony. We ended up sitting next to each other in the ceremony, which was a really deep, healing, bonding experience. And in today's episode, we talk about her personal story of how she learned to tap into her emotions, into her sacred rage and anger, how she was able to finally feel her anger and not to suppress it, not being self-destructive, but to really be with it and to express it. And we also dive into the difference between adult anger, the anger you feel now, and the stuck anger that was stored in your body through experiences where you didn't know how to express it. And it's a really deep, vulnerable conversation, and I loved having her, and I can't wait for you to experience her magic. You can read all of her personal story in the show notes. She also has a background of writing and empowering women. She does women's circles and one-on-one coaching, and I just love her as a woman, and I love for you to listen to her words and to experience her magic. And before we dive into the interview, a little reminder that my upcoming home retreat, it's going to be a 3-day deep healing and embodiment immersion, is going to start on the 4th until the 6th of November. The early bird price is still open, so if you feel the call to join us, you find the links in the show notes, and I can't wait to experience this magic. There's so many powerful women inside. So send me a message or just sign up through the link. I would love to have you and experience the healing and life-changing power of this work. So without further ado, let's welcome Sarah Schill to the podcast. Welcome to the Living Free podcast, Sarah. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So the first question, as always, I would love to know, what does living free mean to you right now in this moment?
In this moment, I get many pictures, like of going to places also, and traveling somehow. Going out of my comfort zone, whatever that means at the moment, and exploring the world and following my passion and my wishes. And going one step deeper, it means that I can truly live who I am inside on the outside, that I can express myself, my true self, and trust my inner voice so deeply that I can live that on the outside.
I love that. And I would love to dive right into your story and your journey. We talked a little bit before that we dive into sacred anger today and sacred rage. And when you say freedom means to you that you trust your inner voice and that you can express yourself freely, I would love to know, how was your journey with expressing yourself, and especially the anger? Like, what made you the woman you are today when it comes to your personal journey and to anger?
There are, of course, so many aspects, but when I connect with this anger part, there is this, I work with the internal family system, with the inner parts as a therapist or as a coach. And I, at one point, found this little girl. She was about 2 years old. And my parents were super young when when they got me. Like, they were at the beginning of their 20s, and they had their own issues and themes And for some reason, this little girl decided to hold them, and that it's her responsibility to make them happy. And I saw her in this one working session, standing there, having like the two hands like this, and holding her two parents, and the hands were burned inside. They were hurting, but she wouldn't. When I, as a grown-up, went there to work with my inner child and told her, you don't have to hold this, it's too much for you. She said, but there's nobody else, I have to hold it. And so she stood there holding it, and yeah, and this image comes to my mind, that I was always somebody who wanted to do everything to make other people feel happy and feel good, and go over every border, every limit of myself. Yeah.
Wow, I just had full body chills because I have a similar story. As you know, my parents were also, my mom was 18 when she got pregnant, and she knew my dad 3 months. She was still in school, and they weren't ready, but they chose us, even though the grandparents were against us. But they were, emotionally speaking, I mean, they were still kids, right? They never had the chance to grow up and to hold themselves in their emotions because they didn't know it from their parents. And then it got all rippled down. And the image I got when I worked with this was my shoulders, that I had always tension in my shoulders and so much weight. And I always thought, it's not mine. Like, it's not my tension. I feel like I'm carrying someone else's burden. And then I also saw my inner baby girl that came to this world, and she could feel everything is already like, you know, very almost falling apart. So there's no space for me to express my needs and to express what I want and to feel my feelings, because there's no one there who can hold me. And I also took on the responsibility for everyone's emotions and well-being. I always thought I have to make sure everyone's okay, because otherwise I'm not safe and everything crumbles and it feels terrifying. So I overstepped my own needs my whole life and took on the responsibility for everyone's emotions. And I had the shoulder when I went into this, and I could really feel like she didn't want it on her shoulder. You know, she took it on, but she didn't want it. She wanted to get rid, but she couldn't because there was no one there, like you said. And that's the thing when we grow up like this, we don't see the choice that we could say no. We just take it on because there's nobody else. We are the glue that holds everything together. So how did you, when you found that image, how did you work with that to come into that healthy expression with your anger and with your emotions in general?
So for once, I really did a lot of work on myself and on my inner child. So in this image, like slowly, I could approach her, and I could hold her, and I could tell her that she doesn't need to hold it anymore. And we could give like helpers to my parents in this image so they were safe, because it was not their fault, of course, that she thought or I thought I need to hold this. But yeah, so we gave them helpers, and then she came to me, and then she could really leave this place. So this was one thing, like the inner child healing, that I really worked a lot with this little girl inside of me. And yeah, it has been a long journey with connecting with my anger in a healthy way, or even not feeling it, but feeling allowed to express it, or but to allow it also to myself and my body. I know the first time I really had this connection to my anger in a good way was during a bodywork session. It's called the Greenberg method. And at a certain point, I felt all this anger and rage in my body. And then the therapist, she said, okay, now hold it, and hold it inside of your body and see what it does. And I felt so alive. You know, it was really this sensation of my whole body was warm, and it was so intense. And I felt like, okay, it is an energy, and it is an energy that I don't need to either, express and shout at somebody, or to hold it inside and get really hurt myself from it, but that I can use for everything, for like for passion, for creativity, and also, of course, for setting clear boundaries, for saying no, stop here. So this is my limit. And that was a really amazing experience to see that it's an energy, and that I can use this energy, that I can ride it like a wave, that it doesn't have to eat off me or to hurt somebody else.
I love that. And actually, anger and rage, it's a very feminine expression. We always think it's masculine because it's so intense, but it's, even if men lose it and they get really angry, it's a very feminine expression because they're connected to their feeling. And like you said, to their aliveness, the energy that's moving, that just wants to be flowing and not stuck away and put away. So I'm curious, how, before that moment, how did you manage your anger? Like what did you do when you felt angry, or when you how was your expression of that, or not expressing it before that moment?
Yeah, so before, I think I tried to play nice on the outside, to smile a lot, to be really nice and not speak up too much, not have conflicts. And I would rather stay inside. I had this eating disorder at the beginning of my 20s, and it is a self-destructive behavior, like this eating in that way. And I only found that out, I think, later, that it's that I numbed myself with overeating. And then I had this, it's called sport bulimia. So I didn't purge, but I made a lot of exercise all the time. And so this was where my anger went in. And then I numbed myself again. And then I felt really bad about myself and felt ashamed and guilty. And on the outside, I was like smiling and being really nice. And on the inside, it was really painful. And then there were certain, outbreaks when I was in the supermarket and I was really down, and somebody said something mean to me or said something just random to me, and it just fired up. And then after that, I felt ashamed again of my anger. So I really tried to suppress it and to keep it inside. And it was like this boiling pot that was always like closely to explode. Yeah. And then at a certain point, I read a book that was called "Women Who Eat in the Moonlight," or the woman who ate in the moonlight, I think, in English. And there were lots of stories about that that the women who with eating disorders, it's about eating disorders, and that it's often girls who feel too much, who feel a lot, who are really sensitive, and who are also often told, you're too sensitive, why are you sad, why are you angry, but that they are the ones that really feel what is wrong in the system or in society or wherever. So that it's a gift, but it's a really delicate gift. And if you don't learn how to handle it, and with all these feelings, and with feeling the anger of the person next to you, and the anger of the parents, and the anger of everybody, I was like a sponge, and I felt everything, and I couldn't handle it. I didn't know how. And so I developed this eating disorder, I think, for once, to try to control the thing and to control my feelings, and on the other side to find some way to express it in a really unhealthy way, of course.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I feel so many women can relate to that, even if it's not an eating disorder, that we find these self-destructing ways, and we even think something is wrong because everyone tells us we are too sensitive and we feel so much. But actually, I feel this is our true essence. All of us can feel, we have empathy, we feel so much, but it gets problematic when, like we both of us did, and so many women do, we take on the responsibility for the feelings we feel from others. It's easy for us to feel other people's emotions and what's like not spoken, the things between the lines, right? And then if we take on the responsibility to make the other person feel happy, and by the same time pushing down our own boundaries and needs and our own energy, then it gets problematic. But the thing that we feel so much is actually a gift. And if we use it wisely and we learn how to protect and stay in our energy, not taking on everyone else's, it's a superpower, and it's so needed in this world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was in a mother-child cure some time ago, like 2 years ago or so. And all the women there, they were so frustrated, burned out, exhausted. They were, had problems in their marriages, and they were nagging and complaining. And you had the feeling that, they were just so unhappy. And I think that this is one part of it, to never be able to really express what are my needs, and or even feel it,
Yeah.
to know what would I need, where is it just too much, or where are my limits. And as you see now in sorry
No,
no, as you see now in Iran, for example, where the women are standing on the street, stepping out on the streets, when women collect their anger, and also as a collective step out and say, okay, this is our body, this is our choice, and here we stop here. What a power, how powerful and how important for in this time and for this planet. And so I think it's really a very important thing to learn how to deal with this anger and how to express it. Yeah,
I think that's something we should learn in school, like have a subject on how to feel your feelings and how to hold yourself. And if you take us back in this moment of, if something happened and you felt really angry, but you almost punished yourself for feeling that way, and then you ate, and then you were even more angry on yourself and hard on yourself, and then you exercised. What were the thoughts that ran through your mind? Like, what was the language you used to speak with yourself in these moments?
Yeah, it was, of course, really self-destructive, like telling myself that I was not worthy, because, why wasn't I grateful for this amazing life, and other people, they have this difficult life and I have this great life, and then I'm not happy. Why am I not happy? How can this be? And then all this destructive thinking of like how the body isn't perfect and what should be different, and comparing yourself to others, like the whole thing, and over again, like, and it's really, if you would imagine you would talk to a friend like that, or to somebody, you would never do that. It's so bad and it's so hurtful and so painful. But yeah, to ourselves, we really do say these things in repetition.
Yeah. And sometimes we're not even aware. It's just our reality. We think we don't deserve more. We are just a piece of shit sometimes that way. We're laughing, but it's actually really sad that
It's amazingly sad, yeah.
Wouldn't even talk to our biggest enemy like that, but we feel and speak the way when we don't look at it. So what were the things you did that helped you to find a more healthy way to feel your anger, to express your anger, and to stop this self-destructing pattern?
Yeah, it has been a long path. And so for once, my husband, who's amazing, and we've been together forever, like since 23 years. And yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, but he's been has been on my side during the whole time, and really holding space for me, and going through all this big emotions and waves with me. And so he has helped me a great deal. Then, of course, I did therapy. I did body work. I worked with healing plants. So there were many different, like a mosaic, many different little stones that came together to find back to my self-worth, to find back, okay, who am I? When you so young start trying to be perfect here and perfect there, and trying to be right for everybody, at a certain point I was there and I didn't even know who I was and what I felt. And so finding the way back to myself and back home has been like a long journey. And then I found this work that I'm also teaching now, or working with now, the internal family systems work, which is working with your internal system and your inner parts. That gave me a lot, that made me feel a lot of empowerment because I found out that my inner system knew all the answers. Because before I was always looking on the outside to find somebody who could tell me who I am and how I should be, and also therapists or also healers and whoever, like everybody who could tell me, astrologists,
Please.
anyone. Yeah, and so I learned that my inner system really held so many answers, and that when I, as a grown-up woman, went to my inner child, as I described before, and I could hold her, and then that I could tell her, your anger is fine, that I could also lead her in expressing her anger. We were talking about it before, about the anger of the inner child and about the grown-up anger. And of course, a child, sometimes she wants to hit a cushion, or she wants to scream, or whatever. She wants to shout with rage. She wants to cry out of rage. And to hold myself in this during those storms, to learn to be the one, that I could be the one to hold me and to be at my side. And yeah, also embodiment practices, like working with breath, working with dance, working with movement, combining, movement with breath, so that you suddenly feel, because sometimes I didn't feel that I was angry, and then I started breathing and moving, and suddenly there was all this rage coming up. And then the next step was, under the rage there was so much sadness, and under the sadness there was the next layer, and at the end, most of the time, there remains just love for myself, for this life. But there's so much above it, and so much pain, and yeah, so giving all that the space to be. And
I
yeah,
love that. Yes, and it's so courageous to go there, because society doesn't. I feel like we grow up thinking rage is a bad thing and anger is a bad thing. It's an emotion that we don't want. And I also had really difficulties. I was angry at my parents that they didn't show me how to feel my feelings. I was almost blaming them that I was feeling the way I felt because of them. And then I realized, wow, I actually took these patterns on when I was a school teacher, and the kid was really angry and raging and screaming. I was so overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do. So I sent this kid to the teacher that was responsible, or I even put it in a room aside, like all the things my parents did to me.
wow.
And I put them on. And that was also a reason I could really feel, wow, even I thought I worked so much on myself and I healed so much. A lot of it was from, like you said, the adult self, the rage from the adult self. If I feel angry, I can release it now. But all the rage and the things that didn't go the way I needed them, all these unmet needs, they were still stored in this little baby girl and this little child. And only when I went back into feeling her pain, that's when it got released. And that's when I learned how to be with this emotion. If a kid is now angry, I can be with this kid and I can be with my own anger. And it changed so much. So if someone's listening and they feel like, oh my God, this is activating, I know what they're talking about, because I feel I have a lot of that inside and I don't know how to access that. How can women or people in general learn to feel their anger, to really open this box of all the suppressed anger, to go there and to express it in a healthy way, to not punch someone, not punch yourself, but to express it in a way that this energy can move and be released out of your body?
I think something that is really, really powerful is having a sisterhood, having other women holding the space for you to express it, and witnessing you, also, like, touching you while you dive into your anger, so you're not alone with it. Because sometimes, if we never felt it, it can be so overwhelming and can be so painful. that it's just too much to open it like just all by yourself. And especially, for example, when you're a mother, you sometimes there's not the space to just shout out your anger or really go into this energy. So finding rooms, finding spaces where you can explore it and where you can dive into it, and maybe there's somebody holding the space for you, I think that is really, really powerful. Yeah, and I think also diving into belief systems, like, because often we are the ones who judge us the most and who think anger is a really bad thing. And so finding out where do I judge myself, where do I judge others, how do I stand to the feeling of anger, what is my reaction pattern, to really observe how am I reacting and what are my feelings when anger arises. So yeah, I think becoming the observer, of course, meditation is always great to dive into this feeling and observe it and see what might lie under it. But that can be difficult, I think, with a feeling like anger, with such a powerful emotion. Sometimes to say, yeah, sit down on a meditation cushion and just feel it can be a bit like, yeah, well.
The flames now.
Yeah. But yeah, and also dance, going out into nature, like connecting to the earth, lighting a fire and breathing, all the things that make us feel, that bring us out of feeling stuck and feeling hard, like everything that makes us soften, I think.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah, totally. Like nature and just being in your own energy has helped me a lot to go there. And in the beginning, I agree with a mentor or with a group of women that you feel safe and someone who's met themselves there.
Yeah.
Like I never felt safe with therapists that read all the books, but I could feel they never went this deep and they could never hold the space because it was just not safe for me to feel with someone. I could feel they haven't met themselves there. So for me, a mentor that has really dove in deep was so healing for me to access that. And when it came up for me, I always felt the safest to dive underwater and to scream, to let it out, to feel the anger and to scream. Because when you live, even I live on a tiny island and even I have neighbors, so I couldn't just scream out loud. So either I do the silent scream when you put the hands in front of your mouth and you just scream into your hands. It doesn't make a sound, but the energy gets released. Or like you said, punching a pillow, punching the mattress, and also journaling. Like just even if you can't say to the person you're angry, journal it out so it gets out of your system. And yeah, these were ways that I could really access my anger, because like I said, I really thought I'm not an angry person. I didn't have access to this emotion because as a child, I learned I'm not loved and I'm not welcomed if I'm angry. I was just sent to my room and I was left alone with my emotions. So at one point, because I didn't know how to hold myself, I just didn't feel it. I just numbed it and pushed it away. And I could feel that something was not right when there were extreme moments where I was supposed to feel angry. And I either didn't feel anything or I just ran away because it was too overwhelming. Like when the big love of my life, when he broke up, it was at midnight, it was February, it was stormy, rainy, snowy. And I just, when he told the words, I don't want to sleep with you in any further future, but I have the desire to sleep with many other women. That's how he broke up with me.
Jesus.
I was supposed to be angry, right? I should have screamed at him. And all I could do was I grabbed my toothbrush and I ran out of the apartment. While it was snowing, storming, raining, all at the same time, I had no place to go. I just couldn't be in this room because I was so overwhelmed by my anger. Now I can see it was anger and disappointment and sadness and all the things, but it was too much that I didn't feel anything. I just had to run out. My body couldn't stay in there. I was really like the metaphor of the flight mode of the trauma response. I just had to leave. And I drove through Munich with the snow in my face with my toothbrush 2 days before my final exam of being a school teacher. It was really intense. And I only felt that anger 1.5 years later in Costa Rica during my teacher training. And I could feel the sadness and the disappointment, but for 1.5 years, I could tip my toe. And of course, I was sad and I was disappointed. But to really go into the full range of emotions took me 1.5 years. The channel
Wow.
froze 1.5 years. And that's when I realized, okay, there's something wrong with the connection to my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the water always felt safe for me to really release it, to scream and to let it all out and to dive if it has to be 20 times and to scream that your vocal cords are sore, just to express it. I had the urge to express my anger and my how unfair it felt in my body and how
Mm-hmm.
disappointed, how world shattering this moment felt. And I never allowed myself to go there. And then after the rage, there came the tears. For 3 hours straight, I couldn't go back to the class because I was just crying all the sadness out. And I went naked back into the ocean because I was in my yoga suit still. And I feel if you can give it back to the earth, what's helped me also to give
Mm-hmm.
these emotions back to Mother Earth, back to the rivers, back to the ocean, and it gets transmuted, is so healing that you don't have to carry it alone. You can release it, and
Yeah.
the earth is helping you to transmute them because we
Yeah.
are part of nature.
Yeah. That is really, really powerful medicine, I find. And
Yeah.
also to allow them and also see the beauty of these emotions. The situation I described before doing this body work, it was so powerful and so alive, and also intense anger, intense sadness, intense whatever, if it's felt, and if we don't put up stories and dramas and resistance, it is just energy, and that can be really powerful. And I like it right now I can really say I like it. Sometimes, of course, there's this really painful anger, but sometimes I really like it when I can be healthy angry. I lived in Sicily for 2 years, and I learned how beautiful it can be to have a discussion where you just like rah, you put out your anger, and it can be really, really cool and can be fun also. So that we put our beliefs and our judgment of what anger is, that we can also leave that be, and dive into what it is, and that can be really pure and really really beautiful also.
Yes, I agree so much. So what would you say, how has this ability and the permission to feel your anger and to be with it and to hold yourself in it, how has it changed your life other than your aliveness? How do you show up for yourself? In which areas has it impacted the way you show up in this world and how you feel in your body?
I can set much clearer boundaries, and I feel it way earlier. I don't have to be super angry and everybody just like running over my boundaries so long until I feel like, oh, now I'm angry. But I feel it much earlier. So that no, that doesn't feel right. And then I can say, no, it doesn't feel right. And sometimes I just want to change something. So I listen inside and see, what is it? Is it really the whole situation that doesn't feel right? So do I have to step out of the situation, or is it maybe just some aspect and I can change it? So there's a whole new range of possibilities of acting and of connecting with people. And and I find that it connects me to others much on a deeper level, because it's truer. It's a truer version of myself, and they can see me better. And also, some people don't want to see me that way, and then it's also their choice. Then it's fine. But I find it really healthy and really relaxing to not push something away all the time, because it's so exhausting.
And they can also trust you more. I always thought boundaries is a bad thing. And in the beginning, it felt so intense in my body. If I set a boundary, my heart beat faster. And I thought, oh my God, all these wounds of being abandoned, they could leave me because I set a boundary. But actually, the opposite is true. As soon as I started setting boundaries and speaking, also, if something was hurting me, to communicate that I didn't do before, I was just taking it all on myself and went into the circle of self-destruction and self-doubt. people trust me more because they know a no is a real no, and I don't say no because I'm a people pleaser and I just want to, to say yes because I'm afraid they could feel bad, and then it's my I feel responsible for their reaction. But they know if I say no, it's a clear no, and if I say yes, it's a clear yes. But if you always say yes, people don't know how to trust you because they don't know if you're just trying to be nice and you don't really feel it. So you live in more integrity, I feel. And also when it comes to your desires, you can speak what you want and what you need, and this shows up in the little moments of life. Like I was in the shop yesterday and I wanted this one candle. There was one candle with crystals in it, in the wax, and I wanted this one because I liked the way they were arranged. And then I took it to the cashier and she said, oh no, that's the one from the shop, we will bring you another one. And she brought another one, and I looked at it, I was like, oh no, that's not the one I want, can I please have this one? And then she said, yeah, it's the citrine. So she went back and gave me another box, and I looked inside, and normally I would have been, oh my god, this is too much, I take up too much space, this is annoying, she thinks I'm too much. And then I said, actually, it's not the candle I want, can I please have this one? And I was so proud of myself when I went out that I can really step up for my desires now, even though it's just a tiny candle, but it ripples out into bigger things with relating to others, with also seeing really honest in your relationships, like which ones are one-sided, which ones are really nourishing from both sides, where you're the one praising all the time and lifting others up, and where is it balanced, and which are the relationships that are really nourishing and you don't stay because you don't want to be alone and out of fear. Like this changed a lot for my relationships.
Yeah, very much. And also as a mother, I think it's so important to teach the children that it's okay to set boundaries and to say no, that I need something else, or I need it that way. So they are allowed to do the same. And yeah.
We are the role models. Sometimes we think we have to bend ourselves over for our kids so they feel good. We stay in relationships that are not good because we want to be, parents for our kids, but we don't see that this is the role model we set also for love for our kids. They think this is what love is. This is what boundaries are. And in my family, there were no boundaries. There was no communication. There was so much unspoken that I thought this is how we live life. And then I realized, wow, this is actually not how I want to live. And that's why I'm so passionate about, speaking about all the unspoken things, because for me, it's not a healthy way to live if you swallow everything under the carpet, because at one point the bump under the carpet will get so big that you have to fall over it.
Yeah, very much. And then if you have children, then they need to make all this way and do all this work. I mean, they will have enough work, but still.
Exactly. You have to clean this generational carpet.
Yeah. I think that's what we're trying to do.
Is there something else in your heart right now that you would like to share about this topic?
No, it's really what I said before, like looking at the situation in Iran at the moment. I have the feeling that it's so important, especially for women, to learn this and to learn a healthy way to express their anger, because women are so connected to the earth, and what is happening on this planet now, what is happening with our children in many regions is so painful, and we feel that it's really not the way to go. And so it's important to use that feeling and to use the anger that is connected with this and step up together. And so this is really something that I'm very passionate about at the moment.
Yeah, I love that. So do you work with anger in your sessions? Like, how can people, when they feel this is something I would really love to dive into, do you offer something at the moment that people can connect to you to work with you?
Yeah, so I'm leading women's circles together with a friend, where we do also dive into these emotions. And then I lead containers of 3 or 6 months, where I accompany my clients in all different areas. And of course, if the anger comes up, or we work also with embodiment practices, and we work with the inner parts, and anger is a very common part that might show up. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities to work on that subject and to dive into that subject. And what I really, from all my journey, I'm not afraid of anger. And this is maybe something that you can also see from all of your journey to really having lived through different things. And so I'm not scared if somebody expresses their anger. And this is also, for some people, I feel really important to have somebody at their side where they don't think like, oh my God, this might be too much. So I don't have this feeling.
Yeah, totally. So important that you feel safe to express it and that it's welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I will link to everything in the show notes. And there's one
Great.
last question I would like to ask you, and you can close your eyes for this one. Imagine you could travel back in time and you could tell little Sarah, doesn't matter what age pops up, sometimes there's a picture intuitively coming into your mind. If you could tell her one thing that you've learned along your journey that would have helped you immensely back then, what would you tell her?
I would tell her to stay wild and to trust, to really trust in her inner voice and in her inner knowing. Yeah, these are the two things I would tell her.
So beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanya.